Welcome to Bible Believers Fellowship and the ministry of KJV, BibleBelievers.com, and part 1 of our two-part study of Revelation chapter 11, verses 1 and 2, the Tribulation Temple. We have frequently mentioned the necessity of having an overall understanding of the Bible from Genesis to Jude in order to understand the last book of the Bible, this book of Revelation. We've also pointed out that a very important part of that understanding should include a basic understanding of the tabernacle and the temple. And in this study, all of this background knowledge will help you understand the place that the temple will play during the Great Tribulation period. If you miss a portion of this message or would like to download part 2, you can find these messages along with hundreds of others in MP3 audio or in streaming video at KJVBibleBelievers.com. That website again is KJVBibleBelievers.com. And now we begin our study of Revelation chapter 11, verses 1 and 2, the Tribulation Temple, part 1 of 2. The title says we're going to look at the Tribulation Temple, Revelation chapter 11, verses 1 and 2. The Tribulation Temple is something that you'd better invest some time in tonight, and this study is a very good use of your time. A lot of people are confused on this issue of there being a temple, and I'm not going to deal with all the protests against our belief that there's a tribulation temple. Tonight what we're going to do is just see that the Bible teaches there is one. But I do want to say a couple of things before we get into it, and that is that it's this false belief that every dispensation, the gospel is the same, and that's what leads people to reject the idea of there being a tribulation temple, because they say, well, Jesus died for the sins of the world, and he paid the full price for sin. Therefore, a temple in the tribulation would be blasphemous. My answer is yes. Yeah. It's a blasphemous time. The Jews are not only going to have a blasphemous temple with blood sacrifice, but they are also going to have a false Messiah. How much more blasphemous can you get? You know, you hear people say, all of the Jews over there today are imposters. They're in unbelief. They can't be... That's what the Bible says is going to happen. They're going to come back in unbelief. They're going to have a false Messiah. They're going to have a temple and offer blood sacrifice, even though their Messiah has already come and shed his blood for the remission of sins for the nation of Israel. And that's what Acts 2:38 is about, by the way. And this whole thing is going to culminate with Israel and all who survive looking upon him whom they pierced, mourning, because they've rejected him up to that point. So anybody who's telling you that stuff, they just don't seem to be clicking. It's not all clicking upstairs. Now, this is the... it's like the dispensations. You've got to understand the dispensations. The difference between the kingdom of God and the kingdom of heaven. You've got to make the difference. If not, you'll be confused in your Bible study. And that's why this is so important. Now we're going to read verse 1 just to begin. So read that with me. And there was given me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel stood, saying, Rise, and measure the temple of God, and the altar, and them that worship therein. John is being told to measure the temple of God. This is during the tribulation period. Some try to say, well, this was proof that John wrote Revelation before the temple was destroyed in 70 AD. And that's not the case. And there's plenty of evidence other than the fact that we just know that John wrote this while he was on the Isle of Patmos. We have early Christian testimony that was around, he was around the age of 100 when he was banished to the Isle of Patmos, and it was around 95 AD. So we know that this isn't talking about that temple because it had been destroyed for 2 decades plus before John was even banished to the island of Patmos. But obviously, there is no temple yet. And that's where the exciting thing comes into play, because people who think that Christianity is just a blind leap of faith don't know, and sadly won't listen to the reality that Christianity is not just blind faith. Christianity is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And when you read the newspaper or watch the news, or you just pay attention to what's going on in the world around you with knowledge of Bible prophecy, you have your faith confirmed and really matured daily in our day and age. There was a time where they didn't see the kind of stuff we see. But we're going to look at a few things in a minute, but take a look at that, because that is a model that is actually in the planning stages of being built right now. It isn't just understand something. Yeah. Solomon's temple, for example, was not built on the Temple Mount.
Right.
It was built and then transferred. You didn't hear hammers and chisels on the Temple Mount. And that's we're going to see in a minute. That's what's going on right now. They are building the temple. And then it can be simply transferred onto the Temple Mount in a biblical manner, without hammer, without chisel being raised. We'll get to that in just a minute, but that's what we're talking about. The preparations are already underway, and the main group behind it is down here on the bottom, the Temple Faithful Institute. The Temple Mount Faithful. And they have a website. If you want to write that down, you can go out on the internet this weekend, go to the public library and use their service if you don't have it at home, and go to templemountfaithful.org, and you'll see that this is a full-fledged effort already underway. And it's a pretty amazing site. Temple Mount Faithful. There we go. Now, this is their video of what the temple is going to look like. And they are already building. Sanhedrin will meet there. Yeah, that's right. That's the blueprint. That's actually the blueprint over in Israel right now. And they have already, this is millions of dollars is going into preparation for this. I bet there's 70 chairs.
Yes.
70 elders. There, and it's based on the Sanhedrin and the 70 there. That is just a taste of what's going on involving the preparation for this tribulation temple. Now, what you just saw is proof that the Bible prophesied 2,000 years ago from John something that's coming true before your eyes. I mean, it's an amazing thing if it dawns on people what they're seeing when they see this stuff. You don't get that anywhere else, my friends. You don't get that in the Quran. You don't get that in the Buddhist writings. You don't get that from Joseph Smith in the Book of Mormon. The Watchtower doesn't give you that, and they take the Bible and turn it into goofiness if you ever read what they claim. Now this, I want to read this. This is on their website. This is now their vision of redemption. And this is blindness. But this is the blindness that the Bible says Israel will be under in accepting their false Messiah. This is from the Temple Mount Faithful website. Quote, "The Temple Mount and Land of Israel Faithful Movement," that's their whole name, "understands the phenomena of modern Israel as the beginning of the redemption of the world. 2.5 millennia ago," see how far that goes back? 2.5 millennia ago. It's 500 years before Christ. "The Hebrew prophets spoke that in the last days God would regather His people from all the lands where He had scattered them." That's in Isaiah 43, 5 and 7. "For the last 100 years the Jewish people have been returning to and rebuilding Zion. Today Israel is again the dynamic center of Jewish life across the world. The regathering is not yet complete." And that's very important. It's not yet complete, and you got about 3 million of them in New York.
Yes, sir.
United States of America is going to go anti-Semitic, and those people are going to go back. But that's, I believe, after the rapture. I hope it's after the rapture.
Yeah.
Today, Israel is again the dynamic center of Jewish life across the world. The regathering is not yet complete. Ezekiel prophesied that God would leave none of them there any longer, meaning around the world. "It is the view of the Temple Mount and Land of Israel faithful that the redemption will proceed in an orderly fashion according to God's plan." Keep in mind, they don't accept the New Testament.
Mm-hmm.
"First is the foundation of the modern state." This is how they see it, and some of this has already been fulfilled. "First is the foundation of the modern state of Israel and the miraculous victories that God gave the people of Israel in the wars against 22 Arab enemy states." Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about there, you need to get on the hopper and start studying history. God is in history. History is His story.
Yes,
when it's told right.
Amen. Yeah.
"Second is the regathering of the people of Israel from all over the world to the Promised Land. Third is the liberation and consecration of the Temple Mount." Now, if you know what I just said, you understand what that's saying. "And fourth is the building of the third temple. The final step is the coming of the King of Israel, Messiah ben David." That's Messiah, son of David. They will, in the end, recognize Jesus as Messiah ben David.
Kind of interesting how they conveniently skipped over the part of Zechariah where when he shows up, he's going to kill 2 out of every 3 Jews. Do they just think that's not going to happen?
Well, because it's not the Messiah killing them, it's God is allowing them to die in unbelief, and the Antichrist comes against them, chases them to Petra,
right?
And all that. But they just spiritualize all that. You know, they become amillennial and allegorist. You know,
Where do they think they are now?
they think we're working on number 3. They believe that number 2 is not complete.
Part of number 3 is done, the liberation, or they?
That's talking about the Dome of the Rock.
Okay.
That's what they mean by the liberation of the, because a Jew can't go on the Temple Mount. I mean, if they see Jews going up there, they go crazy. When Ariel Sharon went up there, that's what caused the Intifada that's caused so much death and everything since Clinton was president.
Get control of it?
Yeah. Well, we talked about the Pope and his control of Jerusalem and that message on the Pope as the Antichrist, but I'll also show you something else about that in a minute. But I got to show you one more clip, and then we'll stick with the Bible study proper, as they say. But this is the Jews. You're going to see an interview with the Jews who are rebuilding the temple.
Today is really a historical event for the Jewish people. It is the beginning of the work of the Third Temple, construction for the Third Temple. Here in Mitzpe Yeriko, we are building a field school for Kohanim and Levites in order to teach them the work that they have to do in Yerushalayim when the temple will be rebuilt.
We are starting to build the replica of the temple here in Mitzpe Yeriko that will serve as a school to educate the Kohanim, the priests, how to serve in the temple. It will be an exact replica of the temple, and today we're drilling the holes for the libations, the water and wine libations in the altar.
And they will learn exactly what they have to do. When the time comes and the temple is rebuilt in Jerusalem, they will know exactly how to perform this service.
Now, he said replica, but the truth is it's the temple that they want to move, but they're being politically correct by calling it a replica right now.
In the time when the Arabs are writing in Yerushalayim, and the spokesman is saying that the temple wasn't built in the Temple Mount. Never the Jews had the Bet HaMikdash there. If they would have there, they would never let the Arabs go up there. And this time that the Arabs are trying to throw us out of Har HaBayit, out of the Temple Mount, saying you don't have anything to do, we have to strengthen our connection in trying to show that we have what to say. We're going to teach the Kohanim how to work in Bet HaMikdash, and with God's help, faster than we have the students, we will have the people going to work and sacrifice korbanot in Bet HaMikdash.
During the Sukkot holiday, of course, the priests would do a water libation for the purpose of bringing blessing to the water that we so desperately need, especially now that there's been a drought for several years. And the water would drip down through what we call the shitin, these holes underneath the altar, down into the bedrock, and would bring a blessing to the waters of the world. So this is what's happening today, is that we're digging these holes in the ground as the beginning, as the first step in building this replica of the temple.
We've been waiting for the last 2,000 years for the rebuilding of the Third Temple. And here it is, for the first time, we're actually taking concrete measures in order to fulfill that dream and start the process of the Third Temple.
We have CNN, they have INN. And that was 18 months ago. And they have come a long way since then, and they are already, you hear him say they're training the Kohanim. That is that the belief that the Levitical line in the priesthood is the Cohens. And that's why those who with the name Cohen are being used to train for the priesthood. Now, on the one hand, it's sad that they're building this temple. It's sad because they've rejected the Messiah and that they are completely deceived and blind. On the other hand, it's exciting because it is a sign of the times. It is a message to believers that Jesus is coming soon. And so, a lot about the Christian life is like that. The rapture itself is sad when you think of the loved ones we know who are going to be left behind, but it's exciting because we want to see Jesus. And so a lot of the emotions you have as a Christian are a mixed bag. I mean, but now come to verse 2 with me, and this gets very interesting. Read verse 2. But the court which is without the temple leave out, and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they tread under foot 42 months. Now, when it says the court which is without, that's the outer court, also known as the court of the Gentiles. It doesn't mean that only Gentiles were in that area, but that's the area the Gentiles were allowed to be in. And he's told not to measure that part of the Temple Mount. Don't measure the outer court. He says, for it is given unto the Gentiles. Now, the rest of that verse we're going to get into next week, because it is, and in addition to this, it's not a part of that, and the holy city shall they tread under foot 42 months. You see, Israel is going to be kicked out again. There's another dispersion coming. And they will go into the wilderness and hide. And we're going to see more of that in Revelation 11 and Revelation 12. You're going to see more of that.
Is this the latter 42 or the first 42?
The last 42. That's what leads up to the actual second coming, the return of Christ.
And then the next verse talks about the witnesses. Is that
Yeah, we're going to get into that next week. But that's
concurrent with the same time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the question is, why is he told not to measure that outer court? And the reason why is it is given unto the Gentiles. Well, isn't that interesting? You see, that would leave the Dome of the Rock where it is. And the temple still being built. Now, there will be a remnant of Jews, I believe, who will not like this. But they're already in existence. If a lot of people aren't aware of this, but there are Jews who hate the nation of Israel. Did you know that?
Oh, yes.
There is an ultra-Orthodox element within Orthodox Judaism who believe that the state of Israel is an imposter. And they hate the nation of Israel, and they are in cahoots with Ahmadinejad of Iran.
And they live in the nation itself.
Well, they live there, but they don't respect the government, and they side with the Palestinians. And they claim, and some of you are aware of this, but if not, again, do some research, you'll see this. And well, no, these are the ultra-Orthodox who think that there's like blasphemous for Israel to be there. Now, there's a lot of liberal Jews who just don't care about their own people, like Henry Kissinger and Judas Iscariot. But these guys aren't like them. They are actually so far conservative that they believe that Israel doesn't have a right to exist until the Messiah returns. And so they think that they jumped the gun and that they shouldn't be a nation yet. They shouldn't until the Messiah returns, see, and that's why they're against him. But other than...
Where's the Wailing Wall in that picture?
Well, it's under the area to the far right, I believe, is where it's at.
Well, I know those Orthodox, they're called the Haredim. That's what they're called.
And you can see this again. Be careful what you do read and watch on the internet. But there's plenty of it out there where you can see these guys, and they go on TV and they go to these meetings and condemn Israel. But that is what I believe is going to happen. And other than these ultra-Orthodox, the rest of Judaism is actually very universalistic. And so when you see what's going on with the Catholic Church coming together with Islam, they call it Chrislam. Well, you also have the liberal Protestants. They're coming along with it. The Anglican Church and the Episcopal Church and the Presbyterian Church USA and the Evangelical Lutherans and all these apostate liberal Protestant groups, they're coming along with Chrislam as well already. And then you have groups like the Mormons. The Mormons are very ecumenical, and most of their people, this is a fact, most Mormons are involved in the New Age movement. And I can't get into detail documenting, proving everything I'm saying, but through the months ahead, we'll deal with a lot of this stuff, just so you'll know what's going on. You have this conglomeration of religions now coming together. Then you have, if we're right about Gog Magog, we studied on Sunday, and we're still going to study some more. We're not done with that by far. If that happens at the beginning of the tribulation, you have 5 out of 6 of the Muslim army totally destroyed. Yeah. So Islam will be weakened, and so what will be left is the liberal wing of Islam. Most of the radicals, as they call them, the true Muslims, they will be destroyed in the Gog-Magog war. So what's left are these liberal types who will gladly join with this group. Now, I didn't have time. I can't just keep showing you clip after clip, but there's clips out there where you can see these Jews who are building this temple to put on the mount, and they declare it to be a universal temple. And they envision all peoples coming to the mount to worship. That concludes our study of Revelation chapter 11, verses 1 and 2, the Tribulation Temple, part 1 of 2. All of our studies of the book of Revelation are available for free to those with internet access. Be sure to visit kjvbiblebelievers.com for your free MP3 and video downloads of this message. It's also where you can find part 2 of this message, along with hundreds of other free audio and video downloads. Our email address is bbfohio@yahoo.com. But if you prefer, you can write to us at our U.S. postal address, Bible Believers Fellowship, P.O. Box 662, Worthington, Ohio 43085. That address again is P.O. Box 662, Worthington, Ohio 43085. The book of Revelation is a very interesting book as it reveals the glorified Jesus. But if you don't know Jesus personally, believing on the gospel message of His death as payment for sin, His burial, and His bodily resurrection from the dead for your own eternal salvation, then the book of Revelation is bad news for you. We urge you to take seriously your spiritual condition. If you have not turned to Jesus Christ for salvation, your spiritual condition is lost. But you can be saved by faith in the gospel message. And you can contact us if you would like to know more, or just to let us know that the Lord has saved you. I am Pastor Greg, and on behalf of the entire Bible Believers Fellowship family, we thank you for listening.
Bible Believers Fellowship presents a verse-by-verse study of the book of Revelation, available free to view on streaming video or download in MP3 audio by simply visiting kjvbiblebelievers.com. Download these free expository studies of the book of Revelation and share them with others by putting them on flash drives, burning CDs or DVDs, or simply post links to our messages in email or on your own Facebook or other social media site. Just visit kjvbiblebelievers.com, look under Videos in the menu to the right of the page, and click on the Book of Revelation link, where you will find hours of free Bible studies and streaming video, and eventually you will be able to access our study of the entire Book of Revelation. If you prefer MP3 audio, click on the MP3 audio page link at the very top of our webpage and use the search to pull up our Book of Revelation studies. All are provided free of charge thanks to the free will offerings and support of the Bible Believers Fellowship family and kjvbiblebelievers.com.